Hadley, Hadley, YouTube. I am back. I got 5 things. We got a whole mix of stuff this time, not just mostly books like last time, I think it was. But we do have some books as usual because I always have books. First up, Young Indiana Jones and the Titanic Adventure. So this is the 9th book in the Young Indiana Jones series, and it was released in 1993. And it looks like it's probably going to be the last one I have from this series because the one number 10 and up all seem to be either very hard to find or can't find them. And if you can't find them, the price is like $60 US or something. It's like, okay. But to end off on any of them, this is the one I would want to because I'm a huge Titanic fan of that whole story. So this was kind of awesome. So basically the story of this book is Indiana Jones. His parents are too busy, so his former, whenever he used to go traveling with his dad around the world, his dad would bring a tutor with him. Her name was Miss Seymour. She has since inherited a lot of wealth and is living in London, England, and asked the family if they wanted to come visit her. Indy's parents were too busy, but they said, Indiana can come, or Henry Jr., and so he does. So he's staying with Miss Seymour, seeing the sights, doing whatever. And the first thing we see him do in this book is he has arranged, he sent like a fan mail to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote the Sherlock Holmes books. And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was like, hey, would you like to meet up? Always love meeting my fans. So the first thing we kind of see him do is meet Sir Arthur Conan Doyle at a hotel restaurant, I think it was. And they talk about his books and stuff like that, and Indy talks about how he'd love to become a detective and an archaeologist, whatever. So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle gives Indy some tips about, always be paying attention to what you see and blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of a precursor into the rest of the story. Miss Seymour is going back to the States, and her and Indy are sailing on the Titanic in order to do that. So obviously this takes place in April of 1912. So Indy's very excited, but the one thing him and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle did before they parted company after their lunch at the hotel restaurant is they went to see a fortune teller. And Indy got some news about how sailing on a vessel in the near future is going to be a disaster, blah, 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 some other stuff. But he thinks nothing of it really, and goes about his day. So him and Miss Seymour board the Titanic, and immediately they are both, especially Indy, is just impressed by the sheer luxury of this ocean liner. And of course, with Miss Seymour coming into all this wealth, they're staying in the first class cabins, which even more so, right? However, a bunch of events unfold that make Indy go, oh, this isn't going to be just a normal cruise, right? So Miss Seymour is wearing this big ruby or something around her neck, and immediately when they have their first meal on the ship, they're sitting with a retired colonel, Oswald something I think his name is. He immediately takes interest in Miss Seymour and especially mentions her necklace and her wealth and that kind of stuff. So immediately Indy's hackles are up like, oh, this guy might be a shyster, right? Also sitting at their table, Indy meets him later, or talks to him later as a guy. Now I can't remember his name. But he is basically a law enforcement on the ship. He is some sort of, I can't remember exactly what he is, but he is involved with, I think from Scotland Yard. Maybe he's an officer from Scotland Yard. So immediately Indy is like, oh, okay, I've got this guy to go to if I feel this situation with Miss Seymour and this colonel guy is getting out of hand. And then Indy's out exploring the ship and he's checking out the lifeboats. Immediately he's trying to put his Sir Arthur Conan Doyle advice into effect. So he's going around the ship and going, oh yeah, okay, yeah. And then he notices the lifeboats. And he's like, how many to a boat? Okay, and how many boats? Okay, so like over half the people would die if the boat was to go down. And of course everybody's like, oh, it's unsinkable. And so when he's checking out one of these lifeboats, one of them the tarp at one end of it is kind of open, and he's like, oh, that's weird. So then he looks inside the boat and he sees a pair of eyes staring back at him, and this girl drags him into the boat. Her name is Molly. She's from Ireland, and she is fleeing London because she was like basically a slave to some people, and if they find her, they're going to drag her back and whatever. So she's like, I got to get to America and get away from that country, right? So Indy promises to keep her secret and help her and whatever like that. And she's a suffragette as well. So if you remember in the one of the previous stories, an old friend of his he met on the streets of, maybe it was London, I don't remember, but they were marching for the women's rights and the right to have rights or whatever the whole scene was. So she's from this group. So Indy is very familiar with what they do and stuff. So he's like, yeah, cool, I'll keep your secret, whatever. So eventually, as events unfold, a guy from India, I can't remember his name, he's a professor or something like that, notices the jewel around Miss Seymour's neck, and he's like, where'd you get that? Well, my whatever gave it to me, it was his. And he's like, that's India's, right? So then there's all these little stories of deceit and incredulousness and all, everybody not getting along, whether they know it or not, right? Going on, and Indy's got to try and make sense of it all. So he eventually goes to this guy that's from Scotland Yard and tells him what he heard one night. So one night while he was with Molly, he heard a couple of German guys talking, and they were talking about sinking the ship. So they don't know how, they don't know why, but he goes back to the guy from Scotland Yard with this information, and the guy's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We need to suss out how they're going to do it, who all's involved. So then this guy gets Indy trailing this opera singer or something from Germany that he says is a big suspect. I've been following him for a while. I think he's up to something, but we haven't had any proof yet. Indy, you trail him and try and dig up some dirt, and I'll do this and whatever. So the rest of the story is just Indy trying to figure out what's in this opera singer's name is Otto. So he's trailing Otto, but Otto is eventually onto him. But then Indy sugarcoats it. I'm not spying on you. I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. So then Otto kind of takes Indy under his wing, and then he's always with Indy, singing for him, making him work out in the gym. And Indy's like, enough, for fuck's sake, right? So there's all these weird things going on. Then suddenly, Indy is called down to the third class cabins where Molly eventually was able to find her way down there and link up with some friends and stuff. But when he gets there, the true enemy has reared his head, and it's not who they thought it would be. So basically there's some twists and turns in this book, and I don't want to tell you what they are in case you ever read it, but basically nothing is quite as it seems on this cruise. Maybe one or two things are, but there's always the twists and turns in these books usually, and we definitely get one in this story aboard the Titanic. But eventually, before the bombs can be set off, the Titanic ends up hitting the iceberg, and hitting the iceberg actually helps save Indy and Molly's ass in the end, because they were just about to meet their doom when it happened. So all these made up events tie right into the actual story of the Titanic, the Titanic's actual story, right? So in terms of the actual historical figures that were on the boat, the only passengers they mentioned that were on the boat, I believe, were the Astors. I think those are the only people that are mentioned. But of course, Indy meets with Sir Thomas Andrews, who designed the boat, Captain Smith, who was taking it for its maiden voyage, and then of course Bruce Ismay is also in there, the coward who pushed things and then skulked off into a lifeboat at the end of it all, right? So great book. I loved every minute of it. Combining one of my favorite movie characters into one of my favorite historical events. I don't want to say favorite historical events, because the sinking of a massive ship and all those deaths, I obviously don't like that, but favorite in terms of just such a fantastical story, right? Like I've probably mentioned this before when I've talked about other stuff where the Titanic might have come up, but as a kid in the 80s, in public school, we used to sing songs at our assemblies every so often, and one of them was the Titanic song, like it was sad, so sad, oh sad, too bad, all that. And and so I was always aware of the Titanic from a young age, and the story really did fascinate me in my imagination, but there was no real photographical evidence. You could see some old photos of the ship setting out from Southampton and on its maiden voyage, but really not a lot, right? So in 1985, Ballard went down with his robotics and found it, and I still remember that National Geographic special they did on it, where they showed those first images of the wreck from those submersibles. And every time I went to the library in public school for book sign out, I would get that National Geographic every single fucking time and just stare at those pictures over and over again, to the point where the librarian was like, Luke, like, you've got to get something else for a change. I'm like, no. And they're like, okay, then you can get that one and then just get another book as well. I was like, okay. So like I would always get, it's fascinated me from day one. So it's not, it's just the whole concept of building this unsinkable ship, bigger than anything they'd ever made to that point, that was so luxurious and held all these passengers, of infamy, right? And then it sinks on its maiden voyage because of all these tiny little things that added up into this one big catastrophe. It's just remarkable. And then to find out all those years later, to be able to piece it together and find pictures of the wreck on the seafloor. And then James Cameron made that movie, which is one of the best movies ever made. Like, the whole thing is just fascinating to me. So anytime something comes up with Titanic in it, I'm going to read it or watch it or whatever, consume it in whatever possible way, right? Second book and final book of this review, Pools of Darkness from the Forgotten Realms series. This is a single book. It's not part of a series, and it was written in 1992. So basically, it starts off with a brief thing about the evil god Bane, how he's tired of people in the realms not paying attention to him and not worshiping him. So he's pissed off, and all of his evil minions are paying the price for it. And he's like, things need to change, ma. So warp ahead to the actual story, and there is a city called Flan, which is a big walled city that has, people have tried to invade it countless times, but the way the city is designed with its set of double walls and everything else, it's never been successfully captured. They've always been able to turn away intruders. Well, one of Bane's minions, a red wizard of Thay named Marcus, with help from a fiend named Tenatol, something like that. Basically like a big gargoyle creature that's all black and kind of big wings and Marcus, with the help from the fiend and some other of his underlings, managed to transport the city of Flan, just pick it up from where it is and put it into a cavern beneath Marcus's red tower, where he lives and practices all of his evil wizardry. So there's two people in the city of Flan, Shal and Tarl, who are a couple. Shal, she is pregnant and is like a huge ass wizard. Like, she's just like, she's able to cast all sorts of crazy spells, very powerful. And then Tarl, her husband, is a cleric of, is it Tyr? I can't remember. And yeah, it's Tyr, I think. And a kick-ass warrior. So a pretty powerful couple. So they're two of the people in Flan who, once they get transported and they're not in Kansas anymore, they're two of the ones that take the lead in making sure the city's, because they know something's coming. They don't know when, they don't know why, they don't know what, but they know something's coming. So they kind of get the city rallied up and make sure they're all ready to get that defense engaged once their enemies make themselves known, right? In the meantime, back in the land of Theron, we see Ren of the Blade. He is a crazy-ass ranger who has a huge reputation for being, basically unbeatable. He's friends with Shal and Tarl, and he hasn't seen them for, I think he said 10 years maybe. So he's had some visions or something like that, or some feelings, I can't remember, some dreams. And he's like, I need to go check in on them. I feel like something's wrong. So he's making his way towards Flan. Another girl, sorry, Ren's not a girl, named Yvain. She is a sorceress, and she has a familiar, a big cat, a big 200-pound cat named Gamaliel, and she has a personal stake in defeating all these pools of darkness. So that's where the city of Flan has been located to, amongst this pool of darkness. She has had experience with these pools before. They've done her personally wrong in the past, so she has dedicated her life essentially to eradicating these pools of darkness. So she's also heading towards the city of Flan, or where it used to be, to try and combat this pool of darkness. And then there are two, what do you call them? The nature people. Shit, I forgot their names. Anyways, cousins Talenthiel and Andorlson, a guy and a girl who are commanded by their kind of god to help Ren out. So they kind of meet up with him. And then eventually Ren and the two druids, that's what they are, and the two druids meet up with Yvain and Gamaliel and figure out they're all kind of heading to the same place for the same kind of purpose. So they decide to combine forces. So now there's 5 of them. And although they don't all get along exactly, they're able to coexist because they have this common goal. And then the last guy they meet, they stumble upon this battle going on in a cemetery, and there's this kind of knight battling all these undead creatures. So they all jump in and help out. And then eventually this smoky evil creature presents itself and challenges the knight that they stumbled upon to a duel for all the marbles kind of thing. So it happens. The guy they were trying to defend wins, and then he reveals himself as Miltiades, who is actually a skeleton. He's a knight from like decades and decades ago. Like, he's legendary, him and his tactics and everything. So they're like, everybody's like, whoa, this guy? But what are you doing? He's like, well, I was cursed to spend the rest of my life as an undead skeleton unless I could set things to rights with my god or whatever, right? Something like that. So he ends up joining the party thinking that, oh, if I can do this, I can close this out. This is going to help me and maybe get me out of this predicament, right? So now they have 6 in their war party. And now they're trying to march to find where the lost city of Flan is, right? In the meantime, Marcus and all of his forces have begun attacking the actual city of Flan. And Shal and Tarl keep turning them away. But eventually, as they keep defending Flan against all these repeated incursions, they start to run out of food. People start to get tired and kind of down in the dumps because when is this going to end? And then meanwhile, our party that are still topside keep running into setbacks and enemies that they have to put down. And then also they don't know exactly where they're going. They have to kind of navigate their way to where they think Flan should be. So, but by the time they finally do, and the two kind of parties come together, Marcus has made his final play for stealing all the souls from the people in Flan and powering himself up and getting himself into his God's good graces kind of thing, right? So it all comes down to one final battle in this around this displaced city of Flan, where the good guys need to rise to the occasion and put Marcus and his fiend and all of their other terrible creatures down. I'm not going to tell you if they succeed or not, but you could probably guess. The bad guys never win in these stories, right? But I'm not saying that's what happens. I'm not saying. You have to read it. Next up, a movie. A movie that me and my buddy Simon and his brother Josh, my other buddy, went to a couple Fridays ago. And I wasn't sure what to expect because, as usual, there's always bad reviews before the movie's actually even fully released. But I try not to pay attention to those things and go into it with a fresh mindset. And we loved it. It was awesome. And the movie in question is Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and Grogu. So obviously, this was a 2026 release, still pretty fresh out of the gates. And I guess there was a 4th season of The Mandalorian TV show that was going to be written, but Disney decided to hold off. I think it was maybe the writer's strike or something. I don't remember, but something delayed it, and then they adjusted, well, maybe we don't do a season, maybe we do a movie instead. And that's where The Mandalorian and Grogu kind of came out of. And it was awesome. It was a great movie. I know it's received mixed reviews, but the three of us all really liked it. The story is that, so it's after, obviously, the Empire has fallen, and there's all skirmishing Imperial remnants trying to consolidate power to try and be the one to take the Empire over and rally the troops and make another stab at galactic domination, right? So in the meantime, the new government of the world, which is the New Republic, is intent on taking these Imperial remnants down, right? So Mando, Din Djarin, if you will, has been hired by the New Republic to be kind of a bounty hunter, mercenary kind of guy. So he, we pick up on him as he's kind of finishing a job and bringing somebody in. And when he gets back to the New Republic base, the person that he deals with there, I can't remember her name. It's played by Sigourney Weaver, which is pretty awesome. He's kind of given his next assignment by her, and it is a difficult one. So basically, he's tasked with bringing in an Imperial commander or something like that by the name of Coin. The only problem is they have no idea where he is. However, there are two Hutts, twins on Nal Hutta, that may just have some information on where Commander Coin is, but Din Djarin has to do something for them first in order to get the location of this Commander Coin. So, what's happened? Well, Rada the Hutt, son of Jabba the Hutt, has been kidnapped, and these twins want him back. So they say you'll find him on the planet Sikaris or Skekara, something like that. So Din Djarin and Grogu take off for that planet, and they start trying to search for Rada. Eventually they find him, and he is actually a gladiator in the fighting pits on the planet. And he's just, Jabba the Hutt was just a fat, useless slob. Rada the Hutt's like fucking, he's jacked. His arms are fucking, and he's fighting in these gladiator pits, and he is winning big time. So eventually Din Djarin is able to find a chance to approach him and say, like, I'm here to take you home and rescue you. And he's like, the twins, my aunt and uncle, or whoever they are, these twin Hutts, I can't remember the exact relation, they don't want me back safe and sound so I can live my life. They want me out of the way so that they can take over Jabba's empire, which he said, which is fine. I don't care. I don't want it. I want to be my own Hutt. I'm actually having fun beating the shit out of people in these matches, right? So Din Djarin is like, huh. And Rada also tells him, and after my next match, I've earned my freedom. I've fought enough. I've earned my freedom. That's what Janu has said. Janu is the guy that runs the fighting rings, right? So Din Djarin goes to this Janu guy, seeks him out, finds him, of course, with some violence involved, which is great, and is like, you got to give me Rada. Like, I've been tasked with bringing him back. I'll pay, whatever. We'll work something out. He's like, no. And it doesn't matter, because after his next match, I'm going to have him killed anyways, essentially is what he admits to. So then Din Djarin is like, what the fuck? So then he goes back to Rada and he tells him what he's learned. And Rada's like, why would he, like, no, that doesn't make sense. So eventually it's time for Rada's last match in the arena. And he starts fighting. Suddenly, who's his opponent? Din Djarin. So they're fighting because Janu, I think, eventually took Din Djarin captive and put him in the pits. So they fight. Basically, Din Djarin ends up getting the drop on Rada, but then says, I quit. I don't want to win. Rada wins. I submit. Whatever, right? And so then Janu is like, what? That's not the way it's supposed to happen. All of a sudden, these electronic, like, ray shield bars around the top of the arena go on. Not all the way, but just around the edges. And suddenly the doors are open and all these creatures start coming out. And this was a really cool Easter egg. When Din Djarin went and talked to Rada in the arena as they were about to fight, or before, maybe that was before they were going to fight, he said, like, no, Janu is going to betray you and kill you. He said, you're going to fight a Dejaric match in your next match. And I heard the term and I'm like, okay, Dejaric is like the hollow chess table in the Millennium Falcon that, you know, C3PO or R2D2 and Chewbacca were playing on in the original Star Wars, right? I was like, but what the fuck does that mean in terms of Rada fighting in this arena? So then, when all the doors eventually came up and all these creatures started coming out, it was all the creatures from the little hologram creatures in the Dejaric set that all came in. I was like, that is a pretty cool fucking Easter egg, right? Very neat. But eventually, the two of them managed to turn the tables and escape and whatever. And Mando's like, Rada, I gotta take you back to the New Republic. Like, I can't get information on Commander Coin unless I bring you back. And the twins give me that information. And Rada starts laughing hilariously. And he's like, Commander Coin? Janu is Commander Coin. They're one and the same. So then Mando's like, kidnaps him, takes him back to the New Republic. So Rada doesn't have to be returned to his psychotic family of twin Hutts, and the New Republic gets what they want, but they're even like, well, okay, that's great, you brought us him, but you didn't return Rada to the twins, which means they're going to be pissed at you and pissed at the New Republic, and now they're probably going to cause us all sorts of problems, which is essentially what exactly happens. So basically, they allow Rada to go off to some world to, you know, live out his life, do whatever he wants, but the twins intercept him. So Din Djarin has to go essentially save him, but he himself gets captured by the twin Hutts, and then they drop him down, just like Jabba dropped Luke into the Rancor. They drop Din Djarin down into a place, but it's like filled with water and swamp, and there's this huge, I think it's called a dragon snake, that comes out, and he has to fight this thing, and it's a crazy ass fight, and he eventually escapes. He takes a bite from this thing, and it's poison, so he's slowly kind of dying. But even though he sent Grogu away to get off planet and save himself, Grogu stuck around, and he eventually, you know, he takes care of Din Djarin after he kind of collapses in the woods after escaping from this fight, and eventually finds an inhabitant of the region that knows the remedy, or whatever you call it, to the poison. So gets Din Djarin back on his feet. So then eventually they're able to get up and go free Rada and dispatch the twin Hutts. The only person they don't get revenge on is the bounty hunter named Embo, who was responsible for Din Djarin being caught in the first place and given to the Hutts. And then eventually in the end of the movie, they dispatch the Hutts, they return to the New Republic, and Rada stays on to work for the New Republic after all of his experiences with everything. And and Din Djarin and Grogu take off into space in their new ship, and Din starts to teach Grogu how to fly the ship, because it's an ongoing thing throughout the movie that Grogu keeps touching all the buttons but doesn't know what they are, so he keeps fucking things up. He's like, okay, it's time for you to actually learn how to fly so you don't compromise us on our next mission, right? So I heard a lot of people complain about the story and the action and stuff, but there's one thing with a Star Wars movie. They're always going to look good. The action's always going to be great, and I thought it was. The story I thought was really cool to involve Hutts like that and have them speak English. Like, it was so different from anything we've seen yet. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the action. I enjoyed the story. And the soundtrack was one of my favorite things. Like, they had some really weird music in this movie, very, you know, electronic and stuff like that. I thought it was really well done. And then, of course, that Easter egg with the Dejaric board and everything. I just thought there was a lot of really cool stuff in this movie, and I enjoyed every minute. So there's my take on the new Star Wars movie. Next up, we got 2 video games to finish things off, both released in 2025. The first one is called Terrifier, the ARTcade game. Now, Terrifier is actually a series of horror movies. I learned that within the last year. One of the guys on my ball hockey team has some t-shirts with a band on it that I guess do music for those movies. He had never seen the movies because he doesn't like horror movies, but he told me about them. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when I saw this game come up, I was like, oh, that's from that series. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to get it. And because it's cheap and it's old school looking, and I thought it was something that I would enjoy. So essentially, it's called Terrifier, the ARTcade game, because the main character in the Terrifier series is Art the Clown, who is like, I guess, a psychotic killer that dresses up like a clown. So, but I don't know the plot of the movies at all. All I know of Terrifier is from this video game. So the plot of the video game is essentially Hollywood is filming a Terrifier movie, but the actual Art the Clown, the actual killer, is pissed off about it, and he's going to do anything in his power to make sure this movie doesn't happen. So you basically take control of Art and his 3 friends. So there's 4 playable characters you can control, and basically disrupt the set. And by disrupt the set, I mean kill everybody on the set, right? So I think it's a very short game. Like I played through this game in like, I don't know, 2 sessions, you know. Very, very short game. I think it's only like maybe 6 or 7 levels. I think 7. And they're not that long of levels. And basically, you take your character through. You can, every once in a while, you can pick your path. Like you can either go up this way or go down this way when you move on. So there's different ways to go through each level. Not a ton of options, but there are some different options. And then at the end of every level is a boss. And it's a new game, but it looks like maybe a Super Nintendo game, like an old pixely game like that. It's got some cool music. It's got a lot of violence. You can pick up a lot of different types of weapons. And yeah, that's essentially it. You make your way through each level, defeat each boss, defeat the final boss at the last level, and you've won the game and stopped the movie from being made. Now, it is very short, but there are several game modes. There's the story mode, then there's arcade mode, which is essentially just story mode, but you got to make it through in one shot kind of thing, which why would anybody subject themselves to that? There's a boss trial mode, time trial, wave mode, where you just take on unlimited, well, not unlimited, I think there is, maybe they are unlimited, but unlimited waves of enemies. And I thought there was one other mode, but I can't remember it. But yeah, like I said, I played through the entire story mode in the first 1 or 2 sessions, and I dabbled with all of the other modes. I tried to earn, there's not a lot of trophies to earn in this game, and most of them are fairly easy, so I did try and earn all the trophies I could by replaying the story mode and then trying out all the other modes. But even with doing all that, I think I maybe had 5 sessions on this game, like an hour to an hour and a half each time. So like very, very short game. Lots of fun. People complain online that it was kind of clunky, didn't control well. And when I first started playing it, I thought this game looks pretty basic. And yeah, the characters don't move that fast. It does feel a bit clunky, but once you start playing it, the whole clunkiness and controls issue goes away. It seems weird at first, but then once you get playing and you get used to it, to me, it controlled just fine once I got used to the game. And it is actually, I found the game to be a lot of fun, but just the fact that it's so short kind of takes away from it. And I know I've said in the past, like, I'd much rather a really fun short game than a long kind of one that's like meh, right? But this one almost falls under the way too short category. Like, okay, they should have beefed this game up a little bit, right? But still, it wasn't that expensive. It was only like $20, and I got to dabble in the Terrifier franchise for the first time. So all in all, I feel average value, average experience, not bad. Last up, now this is a video game that is way better than not bad. Released in 2025, like I said. From Hazelight. If you know Hazelight, you know they make good games. Split Fiction, baby. Split fucking Fiction. We've been playing this game for a long time, but when my son went to residence this year, I didn't see him all that much. So this game kind of got put by the wayside. So that's why the sessions kind of stopped for a while, and then they just resumed recently. and we were finally able to complete it. But if you don't know Hazelight, they make games that you need to play with two physical human players. The puzzles and the action sequences, you need to, each character has their own specific things that they can do, and you can't move on without that. So you need two players to play these games. So we've played all of their games so far. It Takes Two was amazing. There was the prison one, I forget what it was called, where back in the 70s, and you had the two guys breaking out of prison. That game was really awesome as well. Brothers was the other one. I only had the one-player version of that game, and I guess that game wasn't really their game per se. They were involved somehow, I think, but I don't know. But that was easily the weakest of the games. But this game, Split Fiction, it's just as good, if not better, than It Takes Two and the prison one. All three of them I like kind of equally. They're all so good. But anyways, before I babble about how much I love this studio, let me explain to you the plot of Split Fiction. So basically, the two main characters in this game are Zoe and Mio. They are both aspiring writers, and they're invited to a publisher named Raider Publishing. So they go to meet this guy, the CEO, or the guy that runs it. His last name is Raider, and he's the guy that's going to be meeting with them. They're told to bring some of their work and submit, some manuscripts or samples or whatever the hell it is that writers submit. And so these two girls kind of meet each other on the way in and whatever, and start talking. But you can tell right away that they're two very opposite girls. And once they get up and they start talking to this Raider guy, Mio starts to get cold feet, because this isn't your normal meeting at a publisher. Basically, what this Raider guy has done, he has built this giant machine. And these two girls aren't the only two girls there. I think there's 4 other people that have come as well. So there's like 6 people maybe in total. Raider has built this big machine that when it powers up, if each of the people are standing on the little pods, they will get enveloped in they're wearing a suit, and then they will get enveloped in this bubble and basically go unconscious, and they will experience in their minds themselves living through their own kind of stories, right? So it's basically bringing these book ideas essentially to life within their minds. It's not reading, it's living the adventure in your own mind kind of thing, right? But Mio starts to get cold feet on this. She doesn't like the concept of it. She doesn't like the fact that they're going to be in their minds, that kind of stuff. She tries to back out at the very end, and just as the machine's booting up and stuff, and she ends up falling into the pod with Zoe. So 2 of them are in one pod, and the machine's not designed to be able to handle that. So then it causes all sorts of problems with the machine, and within the subconscious universe that the girls find themselves in through the machine, it starts causing these glitches. So essentially, Mio and Zoe are trying to work together to try and get out of the influence of this machine. And as they do, they basically alternate, they go back and forth between each other's stories, sort of thing. So Zoe's are very earthy, fairy tales in a long ago forgotten kingdom. They're all very more past and nature derived stories, whereas Mio's are all like out in outer space and future technology and those more sci-fi kind of stuff, right? So you kind of bounce back between the different worlds that these girls have created in their minds and that they've thought they were bringing to submit as stories to this publisher that where things have gone very awry instead. And they're working their way to try and pursue the glitch in the game and try and find a way to use it to get the hell out of this machine and get their freedom, right? But on the outside, the people at Raider Publishing, they're the workers are trying to manage this situation along with Raider and be like, oh shit, what are we doing, how do we get them out of here, like how do we do this? Like, they don't know, the machine's not built for this, so they're trying to navigate these waters as they go as well. Then the board of directors or something all like Zoom call Raider, and they're like, Raider, like, you need to shut this down. Like, things have gone wrong here. You need to stop, reset, whatever. And he's like, no. So he basically tells them to fuck off. And so he's becoming a madman, and his idea will not be foiled, kind of thing, right? So you can start to tell that the guy's a bit of a lunatic as the story evolves. So in the end, like, even the workers at the machine are like, dude, you have to shut this down. Like, you might kill these people. The machine might blow up. Who knows what's going to happen here? And he's like, you're all fired. Get out of here. Like he's enraged that this has happened, right? And so eventually, of course, in the end, as Zoe and Mio work their way towards the end of the story, along the way, their converse personalities and their butting of heads at first it gives way to understanding of each other, because as they're making their way through the stories, the nature of their stories gives away some aspects of their personality and their past and maybe some of their vulnerabilities and stuff like that. So over time, they start to sympathize with each other and what they've been through in life, and they start to build this camaraderie and friendship that they don't even really realize is happening until it's there, right? So as they make their way towards the end, they have this bond, and they have to make one final battle against, obviously, Raider, who enters the machine as some fucking juiced up electricity guy, fire guy or whatever, and take him on in the end, in order to gain their freedom, sort of thing. And then there's a bit of an epilogue after it too, which is kind of cool. So, but like, what I really like about these games is that in a day and age where gaming has gone so off the tracks, sometimes you buy a game that you can't even play unless you play it online with a bunch of strangers, right? Like, to me, that's bullshit. Like, I don't want to play with fucking some 12-year-old down the street who keeps saying mayonnaise, mayonnaise. That's a true story. And I don't want to play against some fucking whiz kid on Fortnite that just, every time I respawn, oh, I'm dead again. I just got sniped through the head. You know, I don't want to play. I want to play against the computer, and I want to play with a friend. You know what I mean? Or a family member. Like, that's what gaming to me is all about. I don't want to play with a bunch of fucking strangers online. It's stupid. So for this game to be able to be played with another player is obviously a great thing. But the fact that you can only play it with another player is fucking awesome. Like, that's probably the best thing I've ever heard. Like, it is just so, so cool. So that's one thing I really like about these games from Hazelight. The other thing is they really managed to write really good stories that managed to get super emotional at points. Like, the It Takes Two story was really neat. If you remember that one, it was about people in England somewhere, and the parents were divorcing, and the daughter was getting caught up in the feelings about that. Which is kind of funny because at the time my wife and I were going through a separation, so it was just like, oh yeah, been there, done that, right? Like, and then the prison escape one too. There was lots of stuff going on there with betrayal and whatever. Like, and then in this one too, with the feelings that Zoe and Mio had to, you know, be vulnerable about during their time together spent inside this machine, and revealing who they are to each other, right? There's all these really emotional moments that just make the story pop so much more and get you attached to the characters so much more. If only other game studios could write stories like Hazelight does, they'd be all the better off for it. So yeah, if you have somebody you can play video games with and you've never played any of these games before, I would just go out and buy all of them right now and get started on them, because they are so much fun. And such a good experience that you will not regret it. So anyways, those are the 5 things I did recently. I've already got 1 or 2 that are about to succumb to the next round, so I hope to be back in the near future, not the far future, but only time will tell. What does fate have in store? Peace!
Meow.